Let me welcome you to our third Ingxoxo. I am very happy to see familiar names, and I know that there are people now who have become regular participants. Your feedback, colleagues, after each session helps us in our planning, and your inputs during the sessions give others courage to try out new ways of facilitating and engaging students for better and effective learning. Professor Foxcroft indicated that she wanted to be here. I haven't seen her yet. Let's hope that she will be joining us soon. And I wanted to thank her for pushing us to continue with these. Colleagues, without wasting time, we do know that we are now concluding the 4th week of academic activities for Pathway 1 learners. We are now more aware of the challenges and have attempted various ways of getting around them. We also have, as the community of practice, achieved certain milestones. We need to celebrate those, and we also need to celebrate the achievements. We have also in this time made discoveries about ourselves. We have made discoveries about the students that we teach. We have most importantly made discoveries about pedagogies for engagement. And we now have a better understanding of our different contexts. Let's continue to share our experiences and discoveries as we are now beginning to shift gears in preparation for level 3 of the lockdown and the return of some of our students. So colleagues, without wasting time, let me hand over to Tatenda and Tracy. We will start with Tatenda. Tatenda, will you please switch on your camera? Yes, and unmute yourself.
Perfect, I think I'm on.
Yes, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Toni, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share my reflections with regards to the online teaching experience. I'm going to start and end this presentation with brief extracts from an informal piece of a personal reflection that I wrote on the 16th of May. It was a Saturday morning, and the reflection piece, or my writing or my blabbing, was prompted by 50 email notifications that I had received, assignment submissions. I woke up to all these notifications, and it was 2 weeks after we had started with the online teaching. So I'm going to start with that extract. The online teaching experience has been a bittersweet one for me because I'm enjoying the interactions with the students, but it is a lot of work, especially because of the individual attention you give. In the old normal, students were a whole group that you would walk into a room, talk to all at once, but now you must try and show a sense of presence in their learning process, but you cannot see them. I'm finding that I'm putting more work into being interested with where my students are. And then I'm also putting more work into facilitating better engagement so that they get excited about my subject without seeing me. For example, when I give feedback on tutorial exercises, I'm being more attentive to correcting processes that they're using to get to the answers and not the answer. I teach maths-oriented stuff. In a normal class setting, I would have assumed that they are present because I can see them. I would have assumed that they're doing the workings well if they get the correct answer. And I would have assumed that they are actually, I would have not thought about where they are at mentally because they are in class, so everything is fine. Assessing for learning then is seemingly becoming an important thing. So that's the end of the extract. And now I'm going to start with some of the content that I've prepared for today's session. I teach diploma level resource quantification modules in the School of Natural Resource Management. This semester, I have 2 modules with third-year students, that is forest measurements and forest finances. I have 62 students in each of the modules, and about 50 are participating in Pathway 1. So I structured my reflections on the teaching experience based on the content delivery, how I've been engaging with the students, as well as eventually how I'm carrying out assessments. So I'll start with the content delivery. Students had all their printed notes and tutorials before the lockdown, but they did not carry all this work at home. They did not think that when they left the campus, it was going to be for such a long period, and they did not pack their study material. So as soon as the pathway message was sent out to the students, I uploaded PDF versions of all the notes. This was before the online learning commenced. Students, however, I saw that they started downloading the material and reaching out to me with questions. That was a good sign that they had not completely stopped working. At that point, I had not sent any expectations to them of that they should be working, because we were still figuring out the best way to reach out to all students. But I think the students managed to start working because I already use Moodle in normal class times, or in what we're now calling the old normal. I mostly use it as a repository to run short questions, MCQs, as well as some formative quizzes. Because of the mathematical, vertical, integrated nature of the stuff that I teach, I always have to check that the students are getting it before I move on to the next. So I give a lot of short tests, a lot of 1-question test or 2-question test. So the students were used to accessing the work from Moodle, and they just carried on, even though the online learning had not started. The other thing that I did with the content delivery is I'm using the voice over PowerPoints. I've not gone with the Teams session because of some of the students cannot access good internet connectivity, which you need with Teams. But the 50 megabyte upload limit that you get for the voiceover presentations, if you do a voiceover, it's about a 30-minute session. So that also caps the attention span that you actually want to present in a lecture. So it worked well for me. I've also tried doing Teams classes, but we just couldn't focus as a group because of the background noise, because of the constant technical reminders about the muting of microphones. And to me, it was just an indication of how our students are really struggling with finding conducive daytime learning environments. So the voiceover PowerPoints allow them to download and actually learn when they can find a spot in the day, whether midnight or early morning. So to sum up the content, the way I'm working with the content delivery is that the main content types are course notes that I developed, PowerPoint presentations with voiceovers, and tutorial exercises. I'm not using additional reading materials. The good thing is at this diploma level with maths-oriented things, the mathematical nature of the work allows the achievement of the outcomes through a mastery approach. So tutorial exercises work very well. The next section is on engagement. So with how I try to engage the student is I first set up these Moodle Chat sessions by topic. These did not work at all. I thought that this was because their functionality is limited compared to the other chat platforms that the students already have, such as WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and the many of them. So I decided to use Moodle Forums because Moodle Forums do have kind of like a meshed functionality that you would have in a WhatsApp chat, such as file attachments and responding to a specific message on the thread. But what I also did is I opened a WhatsApp group specifically for this time, and I screen cap or I screenshot what I would have posted on the Moodle forum, and I point errors for them to be able to, I use pointing arrows for the students to be able to navigate which section on Moodle we're using. This is because the students are already using Moodle, and for this was in the WhatsApp group is just a pointer for them to be able to get to the site and not be lost in all the content that I usually generate during the rest of the normal semester times. So I'm also using the Moodle forum and the WhatsApp group to do a daily work update. On the work update, I would report on the topic that we are focusing on that day. I developed a 6-week topic schedule So I would remind them that this is what we are doing now. I would tell them of the assessments that I would have marked and given feedback via email and Moodle, and said, I've seen these mistakes in many of you. Try and get a group message going on a daily basis. And I find that the students are really responding to these updates. A lot of them are screen shy, so they never post on the big WhatsApp group, but like the presenter in the first session said, the students will come to your inbox. And what I do is when the students come to your inbox, then I frame the question in a way that will help the rest of the group. And the student will actually be happy that I'm now using their material that they asked me privately to teach the rest of the class. So I do have an example of an update. I can post it in the chat later. I also, with the engagement, the good thing is I had managed to do my practicals just before the lockdown. Practicals in forest measurements underpin the theoretical understanding. So when everything is going well, I often try and have them as early on in the semester as possible, so that by the time I do the theory, the students have seen what we're talking about in the field. So this became very helpful because they had done the practical. So I can already start continue referring to the practicals that we had already done. I've also noted with the engagement that during my chats with the students, they're reaching out to me as a facilitator, as a carer. They're really bringing in that personal touch to them to tell you about their problems. And it is something that I'm being conscious of, to be careful not to go down the role of mothering students, because I can easily do that. I'm a firstborn, 5 children in a family. So it's easy to become a big sister, but I don't want to do that because it will take out the energy towards the actual teaching practices that I want to put my energies in. So I do respond to the students, and I try to point help to the different support systems that we have in the university, such as student counseling services, student support services. But it is something that the students are really coming to you with. You're not just someone who knows stuff who's telling them. They're reaching out to you and really telling you about their personal problems. So I also, to try and keep that space between still work, I try and not respond to the students during weekends. I tell them, have a great weekend. I've already said that today. It's Friday. I'd say, have a great weekend. And then I shut down, and then only on Monday morning I start responding. So that gives them that sense of, we only do work, and she will respond to us if it's a Monday to a Friday. The last bit, which I'm gonna take 2 minutes because I think my time is almost up, is assessment. I feel that there's been an edge in the way I'm approaching assessment for learning. I've had to think about how I get value in the short formative assessments. In the old normal, I'd give a short test in class, mark it quickly, talk to the students. But now I cannot see the students. So I'm using the PDF fill and sign function, where I actually write comments and I look at their previous mark and I say, well done, and I write the name, you have improved from your previous assessments. And sometimes I actually create a template where I just copy and paste, and it's almost the same text for a lot of the students. But because they are in different environmental settings or geographical settings, they all respond to you personally as well, because they feel that you're actually tracking how they are doing. And one of the big wins with the assessment that made me write that reflection piece was when I had given an assessment, the students submitted on time, and one of the students actually said, a couple of them say, thank you for this assessment. We managed to see how the equations are coming together. That never happens in class. They never find out the integration unless you tell them. So I'm feeling this sense of the students taking responsibility in seeing the bigger picture while they are sitting and carrying out their learning in a remote space. So that sense of responsibility is coming through when you feed back to the assessments and they talk back to you as well. But our focus on ensuring that our students complete their modules has to an extent allowed us to shine a light on my practices in the way I design to make sure that they get the outcomes right by the end of the module. And I'm gonna end my contribution with another extract from that piece. And here it goes. I need to think about technologies that will make it better, how I can automate some processes. The online setup is not ideal, but I think some of our modules can be hybridized in such only have to see students when they come in. Thus, we get the benefits of remote learning. University education is changing. How we still make it valuable with online classes, I don't know. Maybe we can. If we think about the work that I'm teaching, there's no way you can learn how to measure trees without being in a field with trees. But how to find the balance is a task. I don't know how. Thank you. That's my contribution. Thank you, Dr. Noluthando.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Without wasting any time, I'm going to invite Tracy. Tracy, yes, I can see you. And I am going to mute myself and hand over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Toni, and thank you to everybody that's joined today. I'm going to keep this short as well and say thank you to Tatenda as well for presenting a lot of that. What you said is actually what I'm going to say. So before I share my PowerPoint slide, I just want to give a little bit of background to my module. I'm from the Department of Applied Accounting and I lecture Financial Accounting 1. Now, this module is very important as it provides a foundation for all higher level accountancy modules. Also, interestingly, to do the Diploma in Accountancy program, you don't need to have done accounting. So for me to expect or to assume that a student understands accounting would not be very fair. So when I'm lecturing or even with regards to my online learning, I assume that the students don't know the work. I also have 190 students which are registered for the module, and of the 190, I have 159 students which are following Pathway 1. That bringing it to about 83% of the module. So at the beginning of April, I also started a WhatsApp group, which I think a lot of lecturers have, and I think we have soon realized that it is the way to go. Now, interestingly, remember I said I have 159 students that are Pathway 1, but on my WhatsApp group, I have about 170 students on the WhatsApp group. So this is an indication again that even Pathway 2 students can go onto WhatsApp and access WhatsApp, but not necessarily Moodle. And then my WhatsApp, what I did was a little bit different. I didn't open up my WhatsApp group to the entire group. I have administrators, the SI leader, myself, and one or two students. I did notice that one student's negativity does unfortunately trickle down. So I encourage students as much as possible to private message me, whether it be a voice note, a photo, whatever. I'm a little bit different. I will answer WhatsApp if I'm still up at 12 o'clock in the night. I do it weekends, public holidays. I'll answer WhatsApp messages by either calling the student back on WhatsApp, sending a voice note, or taking a photo of the explanation where possible. So my whole goal was, okay, I've got the WhatsApp group. That's great. But I wanted more interaction. I wanted where at this point of in time, we are live. We are talking in a group. We are sharing. We are going through exercises. So I also tried the Moodle Chat about 3 weeks ago. To be very honest, not very successful. I didn't find it friendly at all, user-friendly, and the students didn't enjoy it neither. So while I was on the Moodle Chat, I was realizing students are coming in and out the whole time. Initially, I thought, okay, I must be extremely boring. Then I realized it's actually connectivity. And it was an eye-opener to see how often students lose connectivity on Moodle. Now, the problem is that the thread, the student would lose the whole thread, and when they came back on again, they would have to try and catch up where we were. I also mentioned to students about Zoom and Teams, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And also a lot of them do not have the resources to actually use Zoom and Teams. And I want inclusivity. I want where everyone feels that they are not being excluded. So I sat and thought, how can I have a lecture using a platform where students felt comfortable, they had access, and it would be a platform that they would actually choose. So I already had my WhatsApp group, as you can see, and I decided, okay, let me think of how I can use WhatsApp to have a live session. So the first thing that I did was, and thank you, Doctor, you can go to the next slide. So what I did was, remember, I already had my original WhatsApp group, but not everybody wants to participate in a live session. A lot of students also make use of their cell phone to study and to complete quizzes. So I didn't want to have a live chat where a student's phone was going off for 2-3 hours and they didn't actually want to be part of the live session. So I created a new WhatsApp group for the live session, and I shared the link. And if you know that WhatsApp has an invite to group via link, I shared this link to the BFC 1231 live chat to the original WhatsApp group. And I said to students that they can decide whether they want to join or not using the link. Thank you, Doctor. What I also did, and I think this to me was, this is what really helped me with this live session. So I do realize that I'm obviously getting older. I don't type on WhatsApp like I used to, or like the youngsters do. I downloaded the WhatsApp app onto my computer. Now, this enabled me to type faster. I could share documents immediately off my computer. It was just friendlier and there was immediate interaction, whereas there was never a gap in between our session when we were having our live session. So this is what I did, downloaded it onto my computer, and I could do so much more by having this WhatsApp on my computer, sharing documents directly from my computer, from my computer. And at the same time, I still had my cell phone, and I made use of the voice notes while typing, while sharing. It was just, there was never that moment where there was a hesitation. I tried to keep it live at all times. Thank you, Doctor. So what I did was, on the normal WhatsApp group, I would share what I'm doing that week in the live session. And what I do is, students don't have to participate in a live session. So maybe this week they feel, okay, I understand general ledger and bank reconciliation. And the next week, maybe they don't understand control accounts. So it's totally up to them if they want to join the session. Once I've told the students what we are going to do, in the live session group, I then load up either the exercise or the example that we are going to do. Something very important as well is that I tell them this on a Monday, but the session takes place on the Thursday. Now, come the Thursday, for example, 11 o'clock, remember now I've shared the document on the Monday. So if you join after that document has been shared, you do not see that document on WhatsApp. So what happens then is, on the Thursday, come 11 o'clock, okay, I've got my opening voice note, hello, and all that. I immediately share the documents again, because I've noticed that a lot of students join at 11 o'clock. Maybe they realize, oh, I don't actually understand as what I thought. Let me join the live chat. And then at least this is all available for them to follow as well. I think what was most important for me is that I plan the session, because look, it's open. Students can see what each other type. So I needed to make them feel comfortable, to know that this is a space where we were sharing, and their questions were probably relevant to the next person. I also laid out questions that I would ask to get the session going. So I would ask a question and get feedback from students. So in the beginning, it was very slow, but as soon as one person, for example, answered or asked a question, it started picking up. So I think as a lecturer, the most important thing is that you make students feel comfortable in the setting. I just want to say that in my first session of the 159 students, there were about 80 students that took part in the live session, and there was this week about 90 students. Thank you, Doctor. Okay, so how I ran this was that I had the exercise, I had the exercise printed. You don't have to have it, because remember, if it's on your computer, you can read it directly off that, highlighting, cutting pieces, sharing it with the student. So what I did was first started with a voice note, reading the exercises where I would highlight the introduction and I would read the required to the students. And then I would explain to the students what is required from the question, also posing questions to what they think the question requires. And this is all done via voice notes. Now, the computer app does have voice notes. I just found it easier to be holding my computer, my phone while doing voice notes, typing at the same time and answering questions. Once I've read a section, I would ensure that the students were happy. So I would pose different questions. Is this clear? Does it make sense? Are you happy? And as you can see in my little screenshot there, students did end up answering. And you can see there I have my voice notes and students answering, yes, it makes sense. I'm happy, ma'am. You can go on. So the most important thing is after every section, where in class we would look around and get a feeling. I cannot see the students. So the most important thing is for me to pose questions to get a feeling that the students are happy with what I've just, what I've done with them, whether it be an exercise or an explanation. Thank you, Doctor. So working through an exercise, and I'm going to use, for example, the bank reconciliation that we did, is that I would take my phone and read transaction by transaction, but without just giving the student the answer. So all the videos that I did using either a visualizer or the PowerPoint, we're giving them the answer. We're saying, this is how it's done, this is the answer. And when in class, you would give it to them for homework. So the whole point of this is I read the transaction to the student and then I pose a question. What must be debited? What account is this? What's the contra account? And the students have to answer. So at the top of my screen, I can see that the students are typing. I give them enough time to type, taking into consideration that students may not have a computer like I do. Their cell phone may be slower. So I sit back, I relax, and I wait for them to answer. Once I've received a few answers, and I think this is the breaking point for the students, is that while they've been answering on a piece of paper, I've actually answered for that transaction how I expect them, not expect, but how they should answer in the real world. I've also taken the question paper and highlighted what is important. So if you see on your screen, the question paper is what they would get. So I highlight what I would think would be important as a student, what I would want them to highlight and make little notes. And then on the answer, that is me answering as a student. So I take a photo of it and load it up section by section while we're working with the transaction. And then I also give a verbal voice note. So I'm lecturing. So I say, as you can see there, this is the answer. And then I'll ask the students, okay, how do you feel about it? And they would either say, we're happy, we understand, that makes so much sense. Or they will say, Ms. Beck, if I had to answer it like that, how would you feel about that? Thank you, Doctor. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that students do answer questions during the session. We can see there on the one side, it says tick them off, we take them to our bank recon. So this is them answering a question that I had. Then you can see on the opposite side is this is student actually asking me a question about, sorry to take you back, ma'am, why are we not increasing on the bank account? And then just underneath that, to show you that I also expect them to do calculations while we are during this lecture. So my question was, what side, what is the amount, and what's the contra account? And as you can see there, they said debit side 396, and it is inventory. Thank you, Doctor. The most important thing is that you continuously congratulate the students during this process, whether they are correct or incorrect. The big thing is participation. So if a student is incorrect, I will type back to that student and then say, but great question, well done, you're thinking on the right way. And that's, you'll see that at all times, I am trying to encourage the students and I'm praising them for even taking the time out to be on this WhatsApp session. Thank you, Doctor. So before I end the session, I make sure that everything that I have done has made sense And I also ensure that the students know that if they felt not comfortable on this, necessarily on this platform, asking questions, that my phone is always on and that they can send me private messages. And again, I asked them, does it make sense? And makes perfect sense, ma'am. I get it now. And then thanks, Tracy. Thank you, Doctor. Last one. And these are the happy students. So after the first session, it was probably the biggest celebration I've had during the 2 or 3 months of lockdown. I think I phoned everybody to say, I just had a live session. This is brilliant. I got to interact with the students. And this is the students, most of them sent me thank yous, whether it was private or on the group, but they were super chuffed, asking when we were going to do it again. So this is something that I did this week. I actually did it a little bit differently this week. This week wasn't an exercise, it was actually explanation of work. I did the same exactly as this, and it worked just as well. So this is something that I think is inclusive for all students. They are more comfortable with WhatsApp than I am. I didn't even know you could share a link. And then the student said, ma'am, why don't you share the link? So I've learned from the students as well. So I'm very, very happy. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you very much, Tracy. I'm also learning. I'm learning a lot from you guys. And I see there are chats, and I'm trying to get to the participants. I'm also struggling with technology sometimes. Can someone help me if there are hands that are up so that I give people a chance to ask their questions? Jenny? Can I hand over to Jenny to facilitate the question and answer for now, as I'm trying to figure things out myself this side?
Okay, that's fine. Would anybody like to kick off with questions? Brenda, you asked a question in the chat of Tracy, asking if you were pre-recorded voice notes.
If I spoke, thank you. So thanks, Tracy, that was really interesting. I was just asking, so there was no audio, it was all pre-recorded voice notes. You didn't speak live. It wasn't a voice call.
Prof, no, it was live. Well, pre-recorded.
It's live, but chatting.
Yes.
And pre-recorded.
Yes. So
okay. So then my question.
WhatsApp unfortunately doesn't allow, because there was 80 students. I think with WhatsApp, the max you can do 5, I think, if I'm correct.
Correct. Okay, so I assumed that. I just wanted to make sure I was correct. And then secondly, I want to know then, how did you time and split all the voice notes? So you had obviously had to plan that timing quite well. Did you?
So the voice notes happened so I had the phone with me, and while we were working, I was using the voice notes. So it was like I was speaking live to the students. So as soon as a student posed a question, I could immediately, so it was live, because I said, okay, let's work through this part now. So in a sense, it was live. It's just that they weren't seeing me. It was almost like, how do you say it? Yes. So it wasn't pre-recorded. Okay.
It wasn't pre-recorded. Even the reading part. So you said where you would go through a section. Okay.
Everything was live.
That's what I was trying to figure out, if you pre-recorded the voice notes. All right.
No,
okay, so
everything was live.
Good. I've never thought of doing it that way. That's quite good. Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
Interesting. Okay. Excellent. Such interesting seeing the different ways of doing it, because good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Other questions from anybody? Roger, you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi everyone. Tracy, I just wanted to find out, do you use your personal phone for this? And how do you deal with keeping to office hours, and obviously students sending you private messages, that sort of thing? Did that not become a problem?
Thank you, Roger. I hope you're keeping well. That's good. So I have a spare phone, and I had a spare SIM. So I was very fortunate with that. I do not give out my personal number. And then I'm probably doing it wrong, but I don't stick to the office hours because I've realized that some students can only go online later on in the evening. And I think it's also because not necessarily, a lot of people say that, yeah, but the students have got data. The thing is, it's the environment that they're in as well. So it could be that the best time to learn will be late at night. So if I'm still awake at 12 o'clock or whatever, and I get a message, I do answer it, same on weekends. Maybe that's wrong. I think maybe some people say, yes, you need to have office hours. I just feel that a lot of students don't necessarily or can't necessarily work in what I say, for example, listen, 8 to 4 and that's it. So I do answer when I can, but the students do know that, I mean, if they send me a message at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm not awake, I will probably answer it the next morning at about 8.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks,
Tracy.
Tracy. That answers my question.
Okay,
Can I
Jenny?
You're back. Okay, Noluthando.
Yes, I'm back. I was just struggling with my screen. I hope you guys are not seeing my screen anymore.
No, we're not seeing your, we're seeing your name, or I'm seeing your name on the screen.
Okay, that's fine, because I had a problem with my screen trying to stop
I
sharing.
sent you the link. I was in tears. This woman is brilliant. She must work with Laura. She works for the UN. She's sitting in Geneva and she had COVID. Stuck in London by herself for 26 days.
Sure. Person needs
But
to.
it's so well done.
I have muted Shen. Okay, I wanted to go back. Thank you very much, Tracy. Your presentation was informative. So was yours, Tatenda. I want to go back to Tatenda. You have spoken about how you are doing short formative assessments. Can you elaborate on how different your assessment is now than when you were doing it, when you were seeing students face to face?
Okay, thank you. I think I've always used short formative assessments to check the pulse if they're getting their work as we go through, because of the layered nature of the outcomes. If you don't get the bottom, you won't get the next one. But what has changed is the way that I do feedback. So often I would give a short test and then mark, and then the next time in the class session, I would give feedback to the whole group and say, okay, this is the short test that I did, there's your answers. And I would have focused on whether they got it right or wrong. But now when I give feedback, because the students write on a piece of paper and they take pictures with their phones, and there's a lot of scanning apps that are free, such as Clear Scanner, Microsoft Lens, Cam Scanner, and they submit PDF files of the small pieces of paper that they're writing on. Then I also use the PDF fill and sign to put tick marks and write a quick one sentence. Well done, you just made an error there. So I'm now focusing more on the process, because I'm interacting with these pieces of paper more than I would have interacted with the whole group and telling the whole class, this is how you should have gone to. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did, because for the past 2 weeks, we have been dealing with formative assessment issues. I see Shen's hand is up, and I also see who's analyst, Chris's hand. So you will go first, Shen. Shen, unmute yourself and speak.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Noluthando. I'm from the Writing Centre in George, and I just want to support Tracy's findings with regard to time. I'm finding I'm doing quite a lot of night appointments, 5:30, 6, 7, up to 9 even. And I've got an appointment tomorrow on weekends. What I'm finding is that you've got households, one computer, and you've got a grade 3 student, a grade 5 student, and a first year varsity in one home. So they're having to share computer, they're having to share data. So, I've had to take that into consideration, and I'm able to be flexible with my time. So it's not interfering with me. It might interfere more with other lecturers, but I'm finding I want to help the students, and if that's the time that suits them and it suits me too, and that's fine. But I think it's the environmental situations that is definitely leading to the evening, and perhaps even the cost of the data at certain times of night. Thanks, Doctor.
Okay, thanks, Shen. Annalise, Krista, over to you.
Hello, thank you very much. Both your presentations were very valuable and interesting. I'm definitely also going to try this. My question is, we need also to look at longer questions, reflection, where students really have to analyze and write down. And I see now, since we are online, that students prefer to do these short, quick assessments, and I get less and less that they write and give real good feedback. Does anybody have an answer? Because I thought maybe it's also, like you say, it's data, and they don't have the devices to really write these long answers. I let them take a photo and send it, but then the quality is so bad that I can't read it. Does anybody have an answer for me?
Okay, I see Tatenda's hand is up. I will give Tatenda an opportunity to respond before I go to you, Noluthando. Tatenda?
Okay, thank you. So what I've realized with the assessments is you do have the short ones where you feedback quickly, but I've also been giving them longer questions where they have to integrate different concepts, and I give them, say, a day. So I set it up on Moodle, and I say you write down in your book, and they can, and it's open book, so they can ask me questions, they can ask questions on the Moodle forum. But for example, the one that I set up, in a normal class setting, I would have given them the data set to work from. But this time I said, develop your own data sets, analyze it, write up the recommendations, and submit what you think about your own data set. And that was over 48 hours to accommodate the ones working at night and the ones working in the morning, etc. But and that's the one the students came back and say, thank you. We've seen how we are now integrating all these concepts that you've been giving us in bits and pieces in the short formative assessments. To deal with the issue of unclear pictures, you should recommend that they use apps such as Clear Scanner, Microsoft Lens. I'm going to put them in the chat because those apps are good scanning documents with a mobile device. And if a student submits something that's not clear, I'll just say resubmit, and then they'll do it. And most of them know how to find these apps better than we do, actually. So you just give a longer time, but it's in the design that you need to think about. It won't be the same design as if you were in a controlled test room. It would be probably from a problem scenario-based perspective. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Thank you, Tatenda. Over to you, Noluthando. Noluthando, you need to unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute you as well. Okay.
All right. I think it's okay now. Thank you so much, Sus Noluthando. I'd like to thank the two presenters, Tatenda and Tracy. What I would like to contribute, though, is that if you remember how I said I didn't like WhatsApp, and how it's actually a very good tool. However, if you have a large number of students like mine, already you do have limitations, because it only takes up to, they only gave me 257. So I had to form groups, and therefore then you know, you have to merge the screens and whatever. It became a little bit, you know, destructive, and I was requested to actually refrain from using it because of the large number of groups. But you're quite correct, Tracy, it does work. I also love it. I also got a phone that I wasn't using. I had to buy extra SIM cards for that. So I'm not using the WhatsApp for teaching but I'm using it for the tutorials, for SI, for any other things. But for the actual lecture, it's a bit distracted because it only gives you a limit of, so for large groups, it can be quite problematic. I thank you.
Okay. Before I hand over to Jenny, we have time for one more question. Any takers? No? I'll hand over to you, Jenny, and in your synopsis, you can even address the chats that the questions or comments that I did not respond to. Over to you, Jenny, because I'm not seeing any other hands.
Okay. Thank you very much, Noluthando. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, once again, very rich and very informative, insightful presentations from both presenters, Tatenda and Tracy. So thank you very much. I'm going to start with some immediate observations from today's sessions, and then just reflect a little bit on the common themes that are emerging from our interactions on these discussions, and then end with a piece of information that I think we'll all enjoy. So first of all, what did I see today? I saw, first of all, the very important thing that emerged was the importance of critical and reflective questions. And that for me was something that came through with both our speakers, and it is linked very much to a focus on experimentation and a willingness to risk. What have I done today? What could I do better? Why hasn't this worked? All of these questions are a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, but I think they're very important for us to remember, and they sit actually at the heart of what we do as reflective teachers. So I was very happy to see that coming through in our sessions today. And then secondly, I think with Tatenda's presentation, what occurred to me there was that personal reflection is a very powerful tool. The ability to just sit back, wake up in the morning and say, what am I thinking of at this moment, can result in an extraordinary number of insights emerging, which can lead to very innovative practice. So I think that was something that really struck me. I work a lot with people who are involved in personal reflection and pre-writing, etc. And almost without exception, once one's got round the fact of it might not being absolutely grammatical, and it may be unfinished, and it might be all sorts of things that our more focused academic discourses, the personal reflections have a real role to play as we reflect and plan and innovate. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was the very strong importance that came through in Tracy's in particular of planning, the importance of actually thinking in advance of how one might develop a session, how you're going to manage, how you're going to include your students, how you're going to really facilitate inclusive practice. So that was the third issue. And the fourth one that occurred to me when we were talking about questions of who answers questions at which time, etc. I don't actually, I really understand sometimes needs to resolve their home environments, etc. I think one needs to consider that. But at base, I don't think we really have any right answers. I think that people do different things in different ways. And for me, as long as there's a response to the students, at some point that's not too far in the distance, that's fine. If students know that weekend time is downtime, I don't think that is necessarily a problem, but for other people, it might be a good time to work. But I don't think one way or another way indicates a greater or a lesser care for students. I think it is just different. And I think, yes, there are some times when one needs to respond directly to the environment of a student. And there are other times where everybody can come to an understanding of how the working relationship is mapped out. In terms of common themes, again, we had positive responses to challenges, which really lead to good innovation. We had a strong indication of a growing understanding of students and their environments, greater empathy, greater flexibility in terms of submission dates, etc. And the use of short questions came up again as a very important thing. I was in a webinar last week on Ubuntu, where the person presenting identified being caring and humane as a key feature of Ubuntu. And he asked the question, are we being caring and humane as we go online with our students? And I think what's emerging through these is a very, very strong emphasis on offering students as much care and as a humane way as possible. So thank you very much for all the contributions today. We're going to open today's session. She talked about celebrating successes. Our newest doctor, who got her results just a week ago. And so, although you're not doctor on this, you can be doctor after the degree has been conferred. So congratulations, and I'm sure we all join each other in saying well done. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. 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 Champ?
Good afternoon, colleagues. We indeed made and will continue to make discoveries of different pedagogies. One pedagogy that is popular or rather famous during the COVID-19 period is the online pedagogy. We would like to know what learning management systems are used by our colleagues that can help us to transition to online teaching environment. The next thing will therefore be about that colleagues, that is the LMSs used by our colleagues, and what benefits and challenges experienced by our colleagues when using these LMSs. The next thing will be next week, Friday, starting at 12 o'clock, and you are all invited to attend and participate. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Champ. And I saw that the DVC has joined us. Can I hand over to the DVC to have the last word?
Good morning to everybody. I think it's still, no, it's wrong past morning. It's now good afternoon.
It's afternoon.
That's just how things go at the moment. Days of the week, etc., are a mystery. But it's been absolutely wonderful to be part of this session and to just listen and learn about what our academics are doing. I can't talk enough about the wonderful work that our academics are doing. We're going to have to find some ways to say thank you very much for all of this. So thank you. I've made notes. And I'm sure when you read some of my weekly comments, you might find some of those notes appearing there. So I want to just encourage particularly Tatenda and Tracy to continue with the journey that you're on and the magnificent way in which you're supporting your students and being innovative. Talking a bit about the celebration of our new doctor in the room. Just a quick advance warning that on the 4th of May at 4 o'clock, we are going to have a celebration because we would then have been learning online for a month. And the celebration is the 4th of June, sorry, not May, yeah, the 4th of June. is a month after the 4th of May. So we would have been learning online for a month. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to collectively do a dance. I have one of our academics who teaches dance education, and you might actually want to get her on here as well at some point, Noluthando, just to see how she's actually teaching dance, her students, education students, dance from home. But she's going to make us an instructional video with music and steps, etc. And then we're all going to join together at 4 o'clock, put the video on, dance along, and maybe those of us who are courageous enough will take videos of ourselves. I'm not in that category at all. But we're going to get the students as well. We're going to get them all involved. Our marketing team will be sending out communication early next week, but I'm just asking you to diarize that the 4th of June at 4 p.m. we're going to celebrate together. Thanks, Noluthando. It's been a great session.
Okay. Thank you, colleague. We pride ourselves for being punctual, and it's 3 minutes to 1 o'clock. You have earned your lunchtime. Goodbye. We will share the recording and Trace's PowerPoint presentation. Thank you and goodbye, and congratulations once again to our new doctor. Goodbye, colleagues.